Breaking news this hour, an update on the visa dispute of tennis star Novak Djokovic. Australian federal court has upheld the cancellation of Novak Djokovic's Australian visa. We're going to talk to our correspondent Greg Navarro later in Melbourne for more on this case. Stay with us here on The World Today. Now, Kiev believes a hacker group linked to the Belarusian intelligence carried out a cyber attack that hit Ukrainian government websites this week. A senior Ukrainian security official said the attack used a malware similar to that used by a group tied to Russian intelligence. Officials believed Russia was probably involved but gave no details. Russia has dismissed such fears as unfounded. Our Guy Henderson reports from Kiev.
In the early hours of Friday morning, the Ukrainian government revealed that several of its ministry websites, including the Foreign Ministry, the Defence Ministry, Council of Security, had been affected by a cyber attack. Now, since then, services have mostly got up and running again, but later on Friday afternoon, we then had a statement from a press spokesman at the White House saying that its military analysts had been telling it that Russia may have been putting in use to escalate towards conflict. Now, that is something that the Kremlin has said, according to the TASS news agency, is unfounded. Russia, of course, denies any plans to actually invade Ukraine. But the United States government does appear to be really pushing that message now that in its view, Russia is setting the stage, if you like, for conflict with Ukraine. We also heard from Victoria Newman, who is one of the United States' top diplomats, speaking to the Financial Times. She said that the signs were pointing to Russia using what it described as a playbook that it had seen Moscow use before, where it carries out certain acts which are designed to escalate things. Guy Henderson, CGTN, Kiev.
Again, we're following the visa dispute of tennis star Novak Djokovic. Australia's federal court is upholding the cancellation of Novak Djokovic's Australian visa. For more, let's check in with our Greg Navarro live in Melbourne. Greg, the decision seems to have come out a bit earlier than expected. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, sure did. And behind me is a crowd of Serbian supporters, Novak Djokovic supporters, something you don't normally see in front of a federal court building here when there's a case going on. Usually it's a little bit more subdued. They're still digesting the information that adds exactly what you just said. There was a unanimous decision that they decided to dismiss Novak Djokovic's application seeking reinstatement of his visa. Simply put, his second chance, last chance effort to be able to stay in this country and participate in the Australian Open beginning tomorrow and defend his championship. They're all gone. They were adjourned in a matter of minutes. And they made the announcement about 20 minutes ago saying they would come back to let us know. Now this means that Novak Djokovic will be deported from Australia and potentially not able to return for the next 3 years. Now, we don't know the specifics of the judge's decisions. They said they will release that information later, but we do know it was unanimous. They considered a number of arguments on both sides. Djokovic's lawyers arguing that he was not a threat in any way in whipping up anti-vaccination sentiments, and they argued that, in fact, him being deported would create more problems and gather more support for people who were against vaccines. The government's lawyers said that was ridiculous. They said simply he could have ended all of this without having to go through any court appeals by simply getting vaccinated, but it appears that was not something he wanted to do. Remember that he was granted a medical exemption initially in arriving to Australia so he could participate in the Australian Open. That was done by the state of Victoria as well as Tennis Australia. But at the moment he arrived in Australia, the border force operating for basically the federal government said that his visa was not valid. They held him in detention for several hours. That case went to court, went before a trial judge, or a judge, I should say, and the judge found that the government, the border force personnel, did not give Djokovic enough time to file an appeal. He was released. He's been practicing, preparing for the Australian Open, awaiting the government's final decision. All this as of Friday, late Friday afternoon here. The government announced it was revoking his visa once again. A last-minute appeal was launched here this morning, Sunday, Australia time, in the federal court here in Melbourne. And as you just heard, once again, those three judges that sat and listened to arguments on both sides unanimously decided that Novak Djokovic will ultimately be deported.
Greg, a long saga that seems to have an ending, at least for now, legally. What will this mean for Djokovic? How soon will he be deported? And what impact this will have on his legacy? We will keep watching closely. Our Greg Navarro following all of this for us in Melbourne, Australia for us. Thank you so much, Greg.